Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Victor Stams. This week, I have an incredibly special guest. I feel like every week I say that I have a special guest, but I truly believe that all of my friends are really amazing people, and this guy is no different, cream of the crop. This week's guest is a good friend of mine that I've known over the last 4 to 5 years, I would say. Incredibly talented. He's a world traveler. He is a practitioner of martial arts. And for those who don't know, he's a physician. Now, as it relates to the physician component, that'll be in a later episode. But I want to take this time to welcome my dear friend, Shio, and your last name?
Oshogwimo.
There you go. Shio, welcome to this week's podcast. Thank you for agreeing to do this episode. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
So, I feel like every week I say, there's a lot to unpack. And this week's episode is no different. You're very well-versed, well-rounded. And I want to get into some of the components, kind of break you down into components.
Okay.
Tell the audience, first off, for those who don't know, your full name. We always refer to you as Shio, or those in the healthcare profession, which we're not going to talk on this week's episode, Dr. O. But give us your full name and kind of give us maybe a 30,000-foot overview of who you are.
You want like the whole government name?
The whole government name. I mean, why not? Why not?
My whole name's Ismail Olushaya Oshogwimo.
Oshogwimo.
That's
very good.
the whole name.
What's the origin of that?
It's Nigerian. Both my parents are from Nigeria. I lived there as a child. They're from different people, but they're both born and raised in Nigeria.
You lived in Nigeria? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I started school there and everything when I was younger.
Fantastic. Now, what I know about Nigeria, and I've never been, there's this amazing island called Banana Island in Nigeria. Is that where that's where the affluent live? Is that where you're from?
That's not where I'm from. That's
okay.
not where I'm from.
So Nigeria is one of the many countries in Africa. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you grew up there, went to school there, and then you came to the States.
Yes.
Before we get into that transition, was schooling different in Nigeria than in the States?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Like it's based on the British system. A lot of exams. If I'd gone on through high school and all that, we do what like people call like A levels and things like that they don't do here. But a lot of entry exams in the school, just real academically forward.
Okay, so you learned about basically British culture, British history.
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
Okay. And then you came to the States. Mm-hmm. How old were you when you came to the States?
Like 6, 7, something like that.
Was that a bit of a transition that come from Nigeria to the States?
Yeah. We moved from Lagos to Northern California, like way up north, and it was cold.
Oh, is that like ski country, like Tahoe, or
even more north, like almost Oregon north?
Oregon north?
Yeah, Humboldt County, Eureka.
Were there any black people there?
My mom, sister, and brother.
So was that a bit of a transition to go from a country in which largely predominated by Africans to a location in California where maybe none? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like the racial demographics were definitely different, but at the same time, living somewhere where everyone's black, you don't think about it really. Mm-hmm. But then you move to America and they let you know.
I'm curious to learn more about that because, I've traveled a little bit too, specifically over to France. And when I met with some of the Parisians, they really had not experienced racism like you would see in the United States. Mm-hmm. I would suspect that maybe you didn't encounter that in Lagos, Nigeria. Mm-hmm. But when you came to the States, did you experience that? And okay. Was that was that a bit of a shock to you?
I mean, like no lie. So one of my first days of school when we were in California, again, starting school over there, everywhere else in the world, football is what people here think of soccer, right? So it's recess. Someone says to go and grab a football. I go and grab a soccer ball. I'm excited. I'm meeting some new people. I bring the soccer ball, and then this kid's like, "That's not a football." And then I learned about racial slurs.
Gotcha. I see. Okay, so that was interesting. So, you're in the healthcare profession. When you came over from Nigeria to the States, did you have an idea of what you wanted to be or what you wanted to do?
Not explicitly. I mean, we always joke that Nigerian parents say you can be anything you want to do in life. as long as it's a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. And back then, I didn't have any of those three in mind. So,
What are your parents in healthcare?
my mom was a midwife and a nurse.
Okay, all right. So did that pique your interest then? Because you're currently, for those who don't know, an OBGYN. Again, we're not going to get into the specifics of that. That's at a later podcast. But did that pique your interest in going into OB?
Later on, not initially.
Okay.
But it was nice when I started to gain an interest to have someone to bounce ideas off of and sort of hear about her experiences. Because she's probably delivered way more babies than I'll ever deliver, you know.
Right.
So it was nice to have that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so you come over to the States, you're in Northern California, you're sort of developing. Now, the elephant in the room clearly is your voice. Now, for those who are wondering, this is not in any way edited. This is Shio's real voice. I am not adjusting the tone on this microphone down here. So, did you always have this voice?
No.
Now that I'm talking to you, my voice actually seems like I'm like I'm like high pitched.
No, man, you're good. You're good. No, it wasn't always like this at all. So anyone who went to like high school with me, it's locked in the vault, but they know how I used to sound.
Was it like this?
Oh God, I used to speak. It was so high.
How did this happen?
It was not a subtle change.
Is this a medical issue?
Nah. I mean, my dad had kind of a deep voice. My brother kind of had one. You never think anything about yourself is different per se until you get contrast.
Okay.
And one summer I'd wake up in the morning and my voice would be kind of deep, and then it'd go away, and then
it just
one
stuck.
day it didn't go away.
Wow. I mean, every time I'm around you, people always say he's got like a radio voice. I mean, have you heard that before?
Here and there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if your profession doesn't work out, I suppose you can go into radio or be a phone sex operator, one of the two. So as you begin to matriculate, where did you go to college then?
At the time, it was called Manchester College. Right?
Okay.
So we lived in California for a bit, and then my sister got into Purdue, and my mom sort of used that as an excuse to...
Purdue's in Indiana?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my mom sort of used that as an excuse to live somewhere cheaper.
Okay.
So we all moved to Indiana.
Was that a big transition to go from California to Indiana?
Okay. That might have been even bigger.
Okay, I got you.
Here to California.
Okay. How did you adjust to Indiana? Did you make friends pretty easily, or?
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. Yeah, I met some people, and that was some of them I'm still friends with today. Which is nice. Yeah.
Now, so you're in college, and you decide at what point that you want to go into medicine. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I have this kind of problem where I like to see things through. So I get to college. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, we're going to be pre-med. We're going to be pre-med. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And then I just kept going.
But you mentioned earlier, you said, when you're a Nigerian kid, to your parents, you can be anything you want to.
Right,
if it's a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, I think you said earlier. So did you feel that pressure from your parents that you had to do this, or was this something that you wanted to do?
No, because also I'm the youngest sibling, so I have a little bit of that. I do what I want in me.
Okay.
And so I initially wanted to be an architect. I've always been into houses, architectural design, but then I found out that I'm terrible at math, and so those dreams were crushed.
Okay.
And and then I gravitated toward the sciences a little bit in college, and saw a few people who were working in that space, and I thought, this could be interesting.
Okay, so how did you go from that to then OB? Was this in medical school that you decided?
Yeah.
Because we all rotate through the different specialties.
Exactly.
How did you pick OB out of all of them?
It definitely wasn't something I thought I was going to do going into it. I liked surgery. I like operating in general. I wanted to work with my hands. I'm kind of into emergency situations. And I actually did family medicine for a year.
Okay.
And when I was doing that after medical school, I met this guy, Dr. Bruner, in Ohio. And, he just let me do a lot of the rotation when I was on OB with him. And he was just like, if you like this, maybe you should think about making a change. And I was like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it gives you a lot of surgery.
Sure.
There's a lot of acute things that happen, which I kind of like. And Yeah, it changes all the time.
For me, when I was younger, I actually thought about OB too. There used to be the show on TV called The Cosby Show. I don't want to get into Bill Cosby and the details surrounding that, but he played an OBGYN. So for me as a young African American kid, this is the first successful physician that I saw. None of my parents were in medicine, so for me, I said being an OB is kind of the thing to do. And then ultimately, I changed when I got to medical school, but that was my experience. But for me, the long hours delivering babies, the high stakes. I mean, that pressure didn't bother you when you were in training.
The thing is, like, you don't know what you're doing until you're doing it sometimes, and so some of that ignorance is bliss. You just go into it. You're like, well, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and if you think about all the little details and things that could happen, you probably wouldn't show up to work. So,
sure, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But from what I know, OB is really labor intensive. I mean, a lot of long hours. But one of the things that I know about you is that you actually get out and travel a fair amount. So I'm curious to see, how do you balance your busy work schedule practice with the amount of travel that you do? Because I think you just went on a recent trip, if I recall. Is that correct?
I was in Japan back in April.
Unbelievable. How did you pick Japan? And tell me about that trip.
I always wanted to go somewhere in Asia, and I also always wanted to go to the Olympics. And so I planned to go to Japan during the last Olympics in Tokyo. But of course, COVID ruins lives and happiness. So I had to sort of table that. But then I had an opportunity to go. So
well, I don't think the viewers know, but one of your interests outside of travel and work, of course, is martial arts or is it Taekwondo?
Yeah, I've done Taekwondo for.
So are you like
several years.
Have you done this when you were in high school? I mean, were you beating kids up at the playground?
I started it in high school, but I was never beating anyone up on the playground.
Now, do you still practice or do you still participate in Taekwondo?
Not as much. When I first moved here to Champaign, I did it for a bit, but just time.
Okay,
it's hard to do everything. So.
Yeah, I've seen kind of the martial arts things on TV and kind of the hand-to-hand combat. But I figured that with you, I mean, you can't show up to work with a black eye, so I would imagine you'd have to table that a bit.
Exactly.
Okay. So the other thing that I know about you, we talked about travel, moments ago, but you also work out a fair amount. That's one of the things that I struggle with working in our profession. How do you find time? Because I feel like every time I call you, you're always at the gym working out. How do you find time to do that?
I mean, you just have to do it. You just have to make it a priority. I mean, like my natural body state is like 140 pounds. It doesn't look great. And I remember one of my med school roommates, shout out to Dr. Edwin Jackson.
Okay.
He looked at me one day and he was like, "We're going to the gym." And since that day, I just try to keep it going.
So is this mostly weight training then, or?
Yeah, and I mean, there's always cardio. Like I'm on that Peloton too.
You're Peloton guy. Oh, okay. The treadmill or the
bike.
The bike. Okay, yeah. I see. Okay, well that's good to know. I got a couple of sort of heavy hitting questions that I want to get to in just a bit. But before we do that. One of the things that you and I bonded over is what we're currently doing right now. And so for the viewers who don't know, I think for a lot of us, the schooling never ends. And so even though we're in the healthcare profession, somehow we convinced each other about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, to start our MBA. And so we've been very fortunate to matriculate through the University of Illinois Geese College of Business. And so how has that been balancing full-time job, your travel schedule, all the things you do, and getting another degree? Because people would say, man, you're a doctor. Why are you going back to school? What prompted you to go back to school?
I have a friend named Victor Stams.
No, don't bring me in.
He tricked me.
Okay.
I was tricked.
So you're getting your MBA right now, and do you feel like it's just overwhelming with everything else you have going on?
Like there's one thing, like I'm one of those people that like the only way's through.
Okay.
Like life's always going to be busy. You keep it moving.
What do you plan to do? Because people say, well, you're a doctor, all these things. What do you plan to do? Do you have aspirations of getting out of medicine, administrative work, consulting? What do you plan to do with your MBA when you wrap up?
The main thing is I like to have options.
Okay.
I enjoy clinical medicine.
Sure.
I really do. If opportunities arose with something administratively or transitioning to another business or consulting, like you said, I just like having options to see what interests me if something comes my way, and I can apply what I've learned to that.
Okay. That's good. That's good to hear. So as I said moments ago, I have a couple of sort of lighthearted questions that I want to kind of bounce off you, kind of this or that scenarios. So we can title this segment any number of things, but I like to just title it this or that.
Okay.
Now, for those who don't know, and I'm not going to get into this again, this will be in a later podcast, but you are single at the moment. I may have to edit this out.
So. Did my mom send me over this? What is this?
Is there no pressure from your parents, Nigerian parents, to get married, have kids, all that stuff?
I mean, only when I'm awake.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Pressure every day.
All right, so that'll start the first question. So the first question: marriage or dating? Which would you prefer?
I mean, I suppose marriage is definitely better.
You're stuttering through that question. So
no, but I mean, like, if you're with someone you want to be with, that's always the better option.
What kind of partner do you see yourself settling down with? Because I would imagine that you and your parents have very, very high standards.
Like nothing from any sort of like academic pedigree or anything like that. But
Okay, so they don't want you to marry a doctor or something like that?
No, I mean, they can think all they want, but when it comes to me, just someone who's confident themselves, has their own goals. Like the ideal situation is, for me, is two people.
Speak slowly. My viewers are watching this carefully, so go ahead.
No, just two people that happen to be doing life together.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't need someone to complete me.
Okay.
And vice versa, but
Jerry Maguire,
we're here, so we want to be.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Next question: vacation or staycation?
I mean, I'm gonna have to pick vacation.
Vacation.
I work a lot.
You travel to a lot of places. What's the most amazing place that you've been to in your travels?
I mean, everything's different. It depends, like, for what. Like Japan was just interesting from a cultural standpoint. It's the cleanest, most orderly place I've ever been in my life.
Japan is?
Yeah, just most orderly. I've never seen a clean men's bathroom in the wild. Like, it was
really?
Most orderly, clean place I've
Meaning I can pull up to the urinal, I don't have to worry about the floor?
No worries.
Spotless.
No worries.
Interesting.
No worries.
So Japan is at the top of your list?
Well, I mean, just from that aspect. But then, I mean, Spain.
I'm going to have to get to the Spain trip, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I don't want the episode to run long, but I do have to tell an interesting story. So for the viewers who may not be aware, a year, maybe
about
2
a year.
About a year, a year and some change. We decided to go to Spain, Madrid, Mallorca, and Barcelona. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so on this trip, we decided to maybe do a little bit of cliff diving, cliff jumping, sort of sightseeing.
Yes.
So we decided to rent a boat. We end up in the middle of the ocean near some cliffs. And we said, this cliff looks good. Let's go jump off of it. Now, there are about 4 of us that decided to do this. Yep. The boat can't get close to the cliff because of the rocks. So we need to jump off the boat and swim to the cliffs. So we get there, we jump in, I think. we maybe kind of playing around the water for about 10 or 15 minutes. We jump in, and I think I was the first person in.
Yeah.
And immediately I noticed that I'm swimming amongst jellyfish. Mm-hmm. Now, there's no way out of this scenario other than to go through it to get back to this boat. Now, I think no sooner than I yelled out jellyfish do I get stung. Now, I don't know I don't know what happened after this. All I know is that I was not aware of any Olympic Nigerian swimmers, but somehow you jumped in the ocean past me and made it back to the boat. I mean, in just record time. Did you get stung by jellyfish?
No, I did not, because I was swimming so fast.
You were swimming so fast.
I had to get out of there.
That was a hell of a trip.
I mean, we did take one for the team, though.
I appreciate that. And I did take one for the team. So, no, I appreciate that. All right, next question. Pretty simple. Cats or dogs? What would you pick?
Dogs.
Dogs.
Terribly allergic to cats.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next question. Snow sport or beach sport?
Beach.
Okay. Specifically, volleyball.
I'm not built for the cold, man.
No.
I'm not built for the
Even
cold.
though you went skiing with me this past winter.
I mean,
that's a later episode too.
I mean, it was an adventure. I like to try things.
Okay. Fair enough.
The beach.
Fair enough. Now, as we wrap up this week's episode, I think What do you think the next 3 to 5 years holds for you on the horizon? You're wrapping up school, busy practice, you're single. All these things are kind of coming into play. Where do you think you are in the next 3 to 5 years for those who want to continue to follow your progress on all these social media outlets?
I mean, the big thing overall is I need to turn that work-life balance.
Okay.
More to the life side.
More on the life side.
That's my big overarching goal in the next 3 to 5. Like,
fantastic.
definitely turn that to the life side.
For the viewers who want to follow you, can you tell the viewers what your social media handles are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever?
My main one's my Instagram. It's OLU3. That's just my Instagram.
Okay.
I'm on there.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's me.
Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode. I cannot thank you enough for joining me this week, my
Thanks
brother.
for having me.
I hope the viewers will tune in for next week's episode where I have yet another incredibly special guest. So this is going to conclude this week's episode. Till next time, peace.